Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 76th Map Show. It's Wednesday night and it's Map Show, and tonight is number 76. And I'm really already looking forward to next week. It's a very significant number for me, 77. But tonight, the topic is the Big C Challenge. And I've said before that Map for Life changed my life in Christmas 1999. And it continues to do so. I spoke a few weeks back about challenging beliefs. And tonight I want to just talk about another challenge. And when I talk about the Big C Challenge, we as long distance runners in South Africa talk about the Big C Challenge as a challenge of the Comrades Marathon, which is a 90-kilometer run or 55-mile run between Durban and Pietermaritzburg in KZN. But I'm not going to talk about that. It was a big part of my life for many years, but I've got another challenge that starts with a C as well. But I was inspired on this chat talking to Glenn McQuirk last week, and as we were looking ahead to see what the gem was going to be, and it was this week's gem, which is entitled Moving from Naughty to Nice. And I actually said to Glenn, I thought the challenge was a great challenge, but I wasn't sure whether it was correctly termed in saying moving from naughty to nice. And Glenn suggested that maybe nasty to nice would have been a better term. But it talks specifically about how people find it so easy to find fault. And the gem related to moving from finding fault to finding good in whatever's all about us. And I want to go just a little further than finding fault, because I relate to finding fault to be an issue related to complaining. And that's what my Big C is about. It's about complaining. And I just think it's so important that we realize the importance of our words and how these shape our inner world, and it reflects on the outer. It creates a cycle of negativity, and that itself just fuels further growth. Negative emotions are just have all sorts of impact on our physical, mental, and health difficulties. You know, it's often associated with this decreased mental health, increased physical symptoms, including energy depletion, headaches and migraines, creates stress. It creates a feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. I think it also entrenches defeat. It also rewires our brain patterns, and we just become a habit with negative thinking. One of my mentors, John Gordon, wrote a book, and he put forward the no complaining rule. And my big challenge to you is to live up to this no complaining rule. I was actually challenged a week ago or 10 days ago to start a 7-day challenge of not complaining. And it was quite an experience going through it. I was fortunate that I started on a Monday, and my Mondays are very clearly defined. where it's my stay-at-home day, and I didn't have to face the traffic and things like that. So it was, I didn't have the temptations of getting caught up in traffic hassles and losing my, whatever you want to call it, and the frustration coming in. But it just created an awareness, and it went across. Now, coming back to John and his no complaining week, he talks about 7 days, and he talks about on day one, it's just a question of monitoring our thoughts and wants and becoming conscious of what we think and say. He then says on day 2, make a gratitude list. Create a list of what you're thankful for. He says on day 3, take a thank you walk. Enter a state of gratitude and carry it with you. On day 4, focus on the good stuff. Focus what is on right rather than wrong. Praise more. Day 5, he talks about starting a success journal. Write down all the successes you've had. And then on day 6, let go. What do you have the power to change? What can you let go of? And then he says on day 7, breathe 10 minutes alone in silence and transform stress into positive energy. I actually wish I'd read that. I'd read those rules before I started on mine. And I just started on my no complaining, almost cold, with no preparation. Although in times in the past, I've looked at it. I'm also very specific on journaling about gratitude on a daily basis. It is part of my morning routine, and that I do focus on gratitude. And he talks of 5 things to do instead of complaining. He says, practice gratitude, count your blessings, praise others, praise 3 times more praise than complaints. And how often do we actually praise people? And I think it's something, and I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. It's something that we should think about. He says, focus on success and focus on what went well. Now, in our MAP Cafe, it is something that we focus on a weekly basis, where folk have to report on their success of the week. And to me, it's a critical aspect of a MAP Cafe or MAP Club, that we look at our successes and we focus on our successes, because I believe that what we focus on grows. And if we focus on success and we focus on what is going right, we're going to have more things going right, and we're going to have more success. And he talks about let go, focus on what you have the power to change. And there are things, when we stop and think about these things, there are things that we can change. And then he talks about recharging ourselves. He talks of pray, meditate, exercise, and maybe if you have to seek help, he gives 3 tools for changing it. And it's when you realize that you're complaining, he talks about adding the word but. Now, just as you voice your complaint, and then you say but, and it's a case of the price of petrol, but I'm thankful that I've still got a motor car and that I can still get around. So think about that. And so often we complain that we have to do something. It's not a case of having to do anything. It's a case of getting to do something. And then when we think that we do have a legitimate complaint, it's not just a case of complaining myself. Come up with a solution and not just a complaint. I could carry on about, I could carry on about other symptoms that come about with the complaining and the negative side of it all. But I just want to say, let's forget about complaints and let's focus on our success. Let's focus on gratitude. One of the things that I've been looking at this week was talking about the difference between I've lost my with the difference between stimulation and response, and how we've got that moment of time, and between the stimulus and the response, somebody talks about increase the canyon, and it's just a case of pause. And how often have we been told, listen, and then count to 10 before you respond? And it's that sort of thing. I was driving back from Pretoria today, and I had one of those motoring incidents. So often in the past, it would have given way to road rage. But because of what I've been through over these last few days, I stopped myself and I smiled and I said, here is a wonderful opportunity to prove that I'm in control and not this other guy in the car. So it's a case of just doing something and pausing before responding and just flying off the handle. So my challenge to you for the next 7 days, see if you can go through the next 7 days without complaining, without seeing the negative in any situation. Look for the positive. Look for the positive in every situation, and report back. I just say that we're on a journey. We've got 2 roads, and we have the challenge between the 2 roads. We have the positive road, or we have the negative road. And you must decide what road you want to travel. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing what the panel's got to say about my thoughts. We'll see you the other side of the break. Thank you.
Good evening. Wow, what a challenge. Peter has this habit of making us think, making us reflect, making us ask some pertinent questions of ourselves. Welcome to this evening's chat, and now we'll have a discussion with some co-hosts of mine. We've got Marvin coming in from South Africa and Carlton as well. Welcome, Marvin.
Hi.
Welcome, Carlton.
You're welcome.
So, Peter touched
Hi, Heather.
with me. So, what is your biggest take from that talk, Marvin?
I think the one thing that stood out for me in looking at the way he put complaining is complaining keeps the focus on the problem instead of elevating your thinking to find the solution. And I think that for me was a takeaway, that if you continue to focus on complaining, then it means that your focus is in the wrong place, and it's something to be aware of. And I think it's important to make sure you surround yourself with people that can highlight that to you. Otherwise, you end up being seen as a complainer, and you may actually lose a lot of friends in the process.
What was the biggest take for you, Carlton?
Yes, no, it's almost as if we're living in a very complaining world these days because, gee whiz, people can complain. And understandably, everybody goes through all the different things in their lives. So you sometimes have to just be patient and listen. But now and then just have to feed in something to just, limit the level of the complaint. And that is why I had one instance where somebody told me that, oh, you won't believe the amount of issues I've got in my life. Issues. So I told him, my friend, just the fact that you're using the word issues, it is one hell of a problem. Sorry for the term. I says, how about replacing the word issues with challenges? And suddenly you now look at it as different challenges, which you now can start to label. Much better than issues, because the word issues can mean so much. And I think the more you mention the word issues, the more heavier your burden becomes. But the
So
minute
true.
you just replace it with challenges, it just looks more hopeful. It looks more as if there is a level of some form of solution towards it, because look at the challenge.
That's true, Carlton, because if you remember in Peter's talk, he touched on the choice of words that we make.
That's right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the book by Florence Scovel Shinn, but she says, your word is your wand. There's so many things you can do by the choice of your vocabulary. And Marvin, you touched on something there about how when you complain, you start losing the people around you. A familiar complaint in the United Kingdom is the weather. A lot of people complain about the weather. It's raining, it's too hot, it's too cold. And I sometimes wonder, when will it ever be just right? Now, one of the tips that Peter gave us was monitoring your thoughts and your wants. And that brings up the awareness. How would you suggest, Marvin, to people that they start monitoring what they're saying?
Heather, I want to throw a little bit of a span in the works. Complaining, I think there's a good part and a bad part to it. The good part is complaining helps us feel our feelings. When we feel our feelings, we can change them. When we feel our feelings, no matter how scary, we can ensure that the lessons we learn from this, whatever it is, can stay with us forever. So I think complaining is a valid way of acknowledging and processing our emotions. That's the one part. Once you've acknowledged and you've kind of boxed what you're feeling, then you can look at the word choice in your response. Whether and I like what Peter was saying in that it's important to take a breather before just responding. But I think the key point that I want to bring here is, while yes, complaining has this negative connotation to it, but there is value in it, in that it allows you to express yourself, express your feelings, and kind of box or put in a box that you feel. Once you have it there, it's easy to deal with. Then you can choose your words wisely before responding. So I would say, in answering your question, use it to acknowledge and use it as kind of feedback. Another way is kind of linked to the point that I brought about earlier, is have the right people around you, people that will be there to, you know that the saying that says iron sharpens iron. Have people in your life that will be there to sharpen you. And sharpening you means giving you negative feedback, or feedback that you don't want to hear. But it's the type of feedback that will help you to grow, that'll push you to grow. I think just with those two things, and three would be really using. I make use of pen and paper. I've actually got a pen and paper right here. And in thinking things through before complaining, it's also good to write stuff down. There's a lot of power, as we know, in writing stuff down. In writing it down, it's easier to actually identify the problem. Once you find the problem, you can fix it. But if you're talking kind of like over generic things and then you kind of lose yourself, and actually you expose some of the areas that you need to improve in your life. You expose that maybe you this is an area that you're not so strong at, and it's an area of focus. You actually making yourself vulnerable in front of people if you go too far with complaining. So I think there's a balance. To find the
So,
balance
Marvin,
is in pausing. Yeah.
that's fantastic advice. But sometimes when people complain, they're complaining about the same things over and over again. So what happens to Carlton if it's a recurring problem?
Well, I had an uncle that used to say, "Get a life." When the guys used to come and continuously complain and all that type of stuff, he would just very briefly say, "Man, I think it's time for you to just get a life. Because I think you are too bored and you're too frustrated with your life, and with the result, you're focusing and concentrating too much on the problems around you, as opposed to, looking at some form of just some positivity and some light at the end of the tunnel or something like that." And you get people that it's almost as if they live for complaining. They don't have any form of conversation left in them. You ask them, "Hey man, you're looking good," etc., etc. "Oh, you won't believe how long it took me to do my hair this morning." I mean, my goodness. Jeez, like it. You get a guy that comes, his car looks very, jolly lovely, and so he says, "My boy, you won't believe how I battled to open up the boot this morning because for some reason the boot lock jammed." And so somehow or other, there is that person. They even have a problem receiving a compliment, because you can compliment somebody and they will somehow or other come up with something that sort of dampens the compliment. Sometimes you think, "Oh my God, why did I even compliment you in the first time? I should have just said good morning." And the response could have been, "How do you know it was a good morning for me?" So,
I
that
think
type
those
of
kind
thing
of
happens.
people, you might
It's
just have to
crazy.
avoid. You might just have to avoid them, Carlton. Marvin, I want to take you back to when you were talking about pausing earlier. So, what's the difference then between the reaction and responding? Because usually when people are faced with a situation, they react.
I think reacting and responding comes down to what is your intention. So if your intention and your focus is to want to actually just get attention from those around you, then complaining allows you to do that. Complaining allows you to kind of draw the crowd, because generally you complain about one thing and somebody else hears about it and then they also want to be in on that action. So if your intention is to gain attention, then which look in itself is a basic human need. We all want to get attention, and we know, if you look at the way things happen, as you know, in South Africa, there's lots of riots that can happen. The labor unions make use of complaining and rioting to get attention, but the intention behind that is to bring about change. So I think responding can only happen by checking that your intentions are that of a good nature. If it's one to rather inspire envy and want to be the loudest voice so you can get heard just because you want that attention, then you know that you're acting, and that's obviously going to change the way you think things will be seen.
Thank you for that, Marvin, because that ties in very well with one of the comments that is coming up on our screen from Ingwadi. Ingwadi talks about how Dale Carnegie says we shouldn't complain, condemn, or criticize. So those are very, very, very similar. Carlton, talking to those, you gave us quite a few little scenarios and stories earlier about people complaining. Now, do you think that you can complain and be grateful at the same time? And why not?
Complain and be grateful at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, you can, because I remember there's one of our church ladies. you sometimes even reluctant to go to her, but out of respect and honor and stuff like that, you sort of just do it. Quite an elderly lady, so you go to her and she says, "Hi, Sister May, how are you doing?" "Oh no, I'm supposed to be fine because I am in a blessed environment, and God is good and all that type of thing." So I say, "So you say you're supposed to be fine? So let's turn that around and say, I am fine because I am in this very nice gospel or holy churchly environment. I've got brothers and sisters that's just aching to want to come to me and give me a hug and be nice, seeing me, etc., etc." And she looks at me and she says, "Did you do the Dale Carnegie course?"
That's a good one.
I said,
That's a good one.
"Lady, I inherited the book from my dad. He did the course and things like that. And I inherited this book from my dad, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I say, it's helped me tremendously. And it continuously still helps me. Because every time I go through that book again, I learn something new and I see something new. And then someone like you approached me and I thought, wait, let's just see if any of the advice or information or whatever I read in his book definitely does work. And just your response sort of says, no, it does. So that's a positive response on something that appeared to have been negative. And,
Thank you for
it's just
that,
a matter
Carlton.
of getting that person out of that feeling. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. I want to go back to the gratitudes. Now, Peter spoke about doing a gratitude list and doing a gratitude walk. I know people who ritually, and I'm going to use the word ritually because they wake up every morning and they do their gratitude list. And my grandson, on the way to school, says his gratitudes, but sometimes he just says them. Do you think people have become too comfortable doing these gratitude lists and not really feeling the gratitude?
Who now?
Either of you, the floor is open. You go first,
Go ahead.
Carlton. What do you think? Do you think
Oh,
that's how people have become?
man, there's this thing, what's it called? I think affirmations or something like that. When I hear these guys sort of, when we had to sleep over due to conferences or something like that, and now you find all these motivated people, etc. And now they get up in the morning and now they come with this affirmation, I am so and so, I will be so and so, they this and that, and you name it all, the whole bang lot. And oh man, you listen to this guy and you think, gee, was this guy is now really, he's now just ready to face the world. And he walks out, but he doesn't open up the hotel room door wide enough for him to walk through because of the speed he's walking through. And there he knocks his knee and his shoulder. And the next thing you hear the most disaffirmation things, if there is such a word. You hear the most disaffirmation sort of outbursts and things coming out there. And the bottom line is that gratitude is good. I mean, it's excellent to be happy and grateful for what it is. But the simple type of gratitudes in my life has tremendously worked for me. I just say, thank you, Lord, that I've got another day that's laying ahead of me with challenges that will be coming my way, but feeling very comfortable with the fact that the path I am on, you are in control. And that makes me just, that's simple. That's simple. So you mustn't go overboard with your gratitude. Just be gratitude for the small little things, and the big things will automatically start coming.
So Carlton, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about positive affirmations and gratitude, but and Marvin, you can run with this idea. If I'm complaining, I'm not seeing the good that's around me. I mean, wasn't it Helen Keller? And please correct me if I'm wrong. Who said I cried because I had no shoes? Then I met a man with no feet. What do you think, Marvin?
I think there's a balance. My stance on life is there's always a balance. I don't think complaining in its entirety is wrong, and that's what I was saying in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think number one, it's good because until you open your mouth and you tell people you're unhappy, people will assume that you're happy. until you open your mouth and let people know that something is not right. And this can be like if you take it on the extreme side, someone being abused, until they open their mouth and say, "Stop it, I'm not happy about
Yeah.
what you're doing,"
It
they're
continues.
gonna
Yeah.
think it's gonna continue. So there's a balance. Um, in terms of the other end of complaining is also being gratitude. Sorry, is also being a person that is full of gratitude and being grateful for that you have, that you can control, is the other part that we can do. I think, a lot of times we tend to get too, depending on who you're with also. You can either get really heated up with that person or really heated up against that person. It depends on your frame of mind on the day. Because if you yourself have just come out of driving in this road rage incident, you don't feel very grateful. You don't feel necessary things that you would need to. So I think it's about a balance and
Yeah.
knowing that you're human and that you can make a mistake is okay.
Yeah. But don't you find
In
then
everything we
with
do,
complaining? Sorry, carry on, Marvin.
please, sorry, I was just
Just
going to say, in everything we do,
Mhm.
I wanted to say our whole life is in our control. That what we think, that we see, that we hear, that we say is all in our control. We can choose what we say, what we want to say, what we see, what we want to see. And even if you've seen something that you didn't want to see, there's ways that you can get that out.
True.
So the point is, a lot of it we can't control. One of the things we can control is the use of the language that we use,
Yeah.
to either be grateful or to complain, or find that balance between between the two. Because there are times that you have to complain. If you're not happy with the way government is spending the money that the taxpayers are paying, you got to let them know. If you're not happy with the way you're being compensated, even though you feel you are delivering value at work or to a client that you're in your business, you got to let them know. Um, because it's all part of a feedback that we've got to receive and to give. There's
Yeah, let me
always
just
those two.
stop you there because we're now starting to focus on complaining from a one-sided point of view. Don't you find, Carlton, that when we tend to complain, it's not usually about our situation? When we start complaining, we start blaming something externally for the circumstances or situation we're in. Peter mentioned road rage. Marvin's mentioned road rage. But do we ever think it's our fault?
Well, look, you unfortunately do just get the guy that lives for complaining. It's just one of those unfortunate things. And I think those are the type of people that depresses you if you're not very cautious. So your limit, as you correctly mentioned, Marvin, you find yourself sort of steering away from people like that because they drain your energy. But what I did notice that when after a while you manage to somehow or other get that person's attention off the complaining side of it, as you correctly mentioned, there is a problem that is behind it. There's something hidden out there. And they unfortunately don't have the proper tools to be able to express it. So now it comes out in the form of a complaint. And I've noticed the minute you actually listen to that complaint and you watch the mannerisms carefully, you actually come to a more or less conclusion that this person needs a little bit of coaching, help, mentoring, or something
So
to
true.
just firstly identify what is the actual problem, and then secondly, how to be able to get the person to speak about it, and then obviously go towards somewhere other motivating a direction to sort of settle it.
So that's helping
Or
somebody focus on the solution rather than the problem,
that's right.
something that
That's right.
Marvin had
Yeah,
mentioned earlier. Now, Peter spoke
that's right.
about something else. He spoke about having a success journal. Marvin, how significant is journaling?
Journaling is a great way to capture your thoughts. Sorry, I just need to put the lights on. Colton, do you want to just respond quickly? The lights just went off.
Oh,
So, Carlton, what do you think of journaling? How significant is it?
Well, look, journaling, I believe, is very important, even though I am, geez, like it, man, I'm a procrastinator when it comes to that. But the little bit odds and ends that I do jot down, etc., and through Glenn's motivation of continuously mentioning about this fancy book that must come from me, I, over the last few years, started to, on computer, just, jot down quite a bit of things there. And I was shocked now the other day to realize how many pages of information I've got that's going to need one hell of a lot of editing. But when I go back to a few years ago in comparison to times now, it's amazing what your thought pattern was. It's just amazing how you thought about matters at that time as opposed to now. And it's like a progression, because what appeared to have been really a valuable type of thing I wanted to get across 5 years ago, which I wrote down and jotted, I now had to rethink it. Because during that time, I found myself now sort of progressing, growing, new exposure to different type of environments and activity and people and talks and you name it all. And then that perspective starts to change. So what could have appeared to have been a very type of depressive thing, maybe, which felt the right thing at that moment to do, through journaling, you had the opportunity to sort of go through it again and then make your little chops and changes towards it. Not ignoring how you felt at that time. It's not ignoring it, but it's actually a way to actually pat yourself on the shoulder, congratulating yourself that you now have managed to just progress through it. And I think that's where journalism, journaling something to me, I think is a real positive input into one's life.
Thank you for that, Carlton. Marvin, I'm going to shift the question to you, but slightly different. So we, as part of Map for Life, have something called a blueprint. Okay, 2023 is up. Talk to me about the blueprint and how I can use that for journaling in the coming year.
Sure. So just to add on to what Mr. Carlton was saying, how powerful journaling is, with the new year coming, we can't wait until the 1st of January to want to start planning 2023. When 1 January starts, and it's not waiting for anybody. Time doesn't stop. The blueprint is that one document, that one book that you can capture your thoughts, your dreams, measure your progress, capture any new gems, any new diamonds for the week that you picked up. It's that opportunity to actually plan out that you want to realize. By not planning, you're planning to fail. And the blueprint is that one summation where you can kind of do a dipstick check to see how you are now versus where you want to be. And also, I mean, one of the great things is it's that tool that you can use to capture and track your progress. In MAP, we always talk about starting with one habit and getting that going to bring about the change in whichever area of life that you want to make an impact in. And the blueprint allows you to do that and so much more. So with 2023 on not too far away, I think it's important for those that don't have access to the blueprint to get their copies straight away and start working on 2023 now, because come 1 January, you want to hit the road running. You want to already start tracking what you want to do and what you want done by the end of 2023 upfront.
That's fantastic. So if you're listening to this or watching this, if you haven't got your blueprint yet, your 2023 diary planner, whatever you want to call it, just put a comment on the chat and Glenn McQuirk will get back to you and tell you how you can get one. We also do put a link on afterwards where you'll be able to order your blueprint. But before we go, Peter ended with saying, let go. And he spoke about how you should just breathe in for 10 minutes, meditate, have some silence. Carlton, have you ever done that? And what does it do for you if you have?
Well, in church, we had a very nice chorus. And it sort of just lifted whatever was on you. And the hymn, the little chorus was, let go and let God have his wonderful way. Let go and let God have his way.
Absolutely.
And then all the wording that follows it. And I'm telling you, while you are experiencing that little chorus and knowing that irrespective of how you feel and what you're going through, that your Creator is there, it's just the most fantastic feeling. It is unbelievable. And I think that to me, what really was a moment that got me thinking about your path and the destination. When the story of the three wise men, which was such a fantastic fairy tale story, you can call it, during our time as Sunday school and so forth. And the simple instruction was to follow that star, and that will get you to where baby Jesus was born. That's simple. But what happens? Like we all do, we get distracted. So there they heard some beautiful music from the king's palace. And what do? They get off the track and they go towards the king's palace, because the assumption to them was, you will be able to find this new king that is going to be born there. And they ignored the path that was supposed to take them to where they come. And what, like in our own lives, what does happen? Like I tell many of the students, due to jumping off the path that leads you towards your destination or success. Look what happened with those three wise men that I now can say you can sometimes call the most stupidest wise men possible. Because through them, the king saddled up the soldiers to go and cause the most heartbreaking experience for parents by losing their firstborn. Through these three characters that we call three wise men. And all they needed to do was stick to the path, the instruction that was given to them.
So your point is we need to stay focused rather than get distracted. And we need to let go of all these outside distractions so that we can stay focused on.
And that's where the blueprint comes in. And that's where your blueprint comes in, because it's a fantastic way to get you onto that path and then keep you focused towards that end result and that destination you want to reach.
Yes, that's so true. Thanks for that, Carlton. If you haven't ordered your blueprint again, click on the link. It will come up again and you'll be able to order your blueprint because it will help you. Marvin, meditation. How does that help us with our complaining and staying focused and letting go?
I think for me, the device that I use just to help is your mobile phone. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment and you got no one, or you don't want to call somebody, you just want to make use of a cell phone, put a voice note on, and using a voice note kind of relieve the pressure that you're experiencing. But also, once you relieve the pressure that you're experiencing, you'll be able to then allow yourself to get into that state of.
Okay, we're losing Marvin there for a bit. Just in summary, Peter gave us a challenge. Go out there, you've got 7 days, be more aware of what you're complaining about. Remember, your word is your wand. Consciously and intentionally live your life. Thank you all for joining in, and we'll see you next week.
That's the way. Yeah. Ciao for now.